Welcome to the Table Podcast, where we discuss issues of God and culture, brought to you by Dallas Theological Seminary.
Welcome to the table. We discuss issues of God and culture. I'm Darrell Bock, Executive Director for Cultural Engagement at the Hendrick Center at Dallas Theological Seminary. And we are discussing world religions today, and in particular, we are taking a look at Islam. And my guest is Shia and Paul Golhashem, and I probably got that wrong, but anyway.
You did great, actually.
I did great, okay. And he is a current DTS student from Iran who became a believer after he came to the United States. And so he's going to help us understand Islam on the one hand, and also kind of his story about how he became a Christian on the other, and the nature of his ministry. He does a lot of translation work of Christian materials into Farsi. Is that right?
Correct.
And so his ministry here, he's getting his training to equip him to write more accurately and more deeply in terms of theologically of the stuff that he interacts with.
Yes.
So it's our pleasure to have you.
Pleasure is mine. It's a great opportunity to be here. I had no idea one day I'm going to sit around table with you, so it's a great blessing.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So the first question I always ask almost every guest, no matter what the topic is, so how did you get here, which actually is a very complicated question in your case. So talk about your upbringing before you came to the United States first, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm born and raised in the city of Semnan, which is the northeast side of Iran. Born and raised in a Shia family. My parents, my mother and my father side both were shepherds. My father was shepherd, and my mother side also they were shepherds. So raised and grew up in Iran. 1966 I born, and then midst of revolution I was 13 years old, 1979. So in that time, it was a time or a great change in our country in 1979. So I was in the midst of all of the changes, and then we immediately started a war with Iraq, and then I served in the military for 26 months as a National Guard, so also served in war for 26 months. And then a confusion starts within my heart and soul to see the truth about everything, about life, about who I am, why I'm here, and then It was for me, it was a dark time. Probably for many people in Iran, it was a dark time back then. And seeking for truth and finding the joy and peace, a everlasting peace. And that was my longing for days and nights. So many things was happening in Iran as far as the way the government changed immediately. Of try to be a Democrat, but immediately they apply the Sharia law in Iran, everywhere in Iran, basically. And then just reading some articles or books and teaching from Russian literatures, actually, and from Europe, that draw me to attention to see a different characteristic people in different culture of outside of my culture from Iran, to see there is something going on. I was reading Fyodor Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. Then end of the book end with a love, an expectation to wait for you. And there is a love at the end. We have love in our literature in Iran, but it's sought in poetry, not in action, not in love among the people. There's something I saw differences between the cultural background context.
So you grew up in the Shia part of Islam. I'm gonna stop. We'll come back and pick up your story of your testimony. Let's talk about a little bit about life as a Muslim, and of course, anyone who knows much about Islam at all knows that there are the 5 pillars of faith, which are central to the Muslim faith or to Islam. And then, so talk a little bit about what it was like to grow up as a Muslim.
First of all, I'm going to just confess this one. I'm not a kind of Muslim scholar. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I lived in Islamic culture, Islamic tradition, Islamic law, under Sharia law.
And I take it your you're more like the average Muslim, if I can say it that way, rather than a Muslim cleric.
The Muslim, average Muslim in a Muslim family, praying 3 times. I see my parents are praying. My father wasn't home mainly. He was, as I said, he was a shepherd. My mother was praying. And 1970, 1980, when Islamic government took over Iran, and then prayer, a call for prayer from the mosque. And the Arabic word, that was very interesting for me to hear the Arabic sound. Confusion, because I couldn't understand Arabic word. Pick up a little bit here and there, because some similarity in words. But always for me was a question about, as Dr. Bock, when I was 14 years old, what they're saying. What is this? I asked my mother one day, she was praying. I said, do you understand what you're saying? She said, no. I said, so what are you saying? She said, well, son, this is what they taught me. That's what I'm doing. So in living on that environment, is just not a religion. So we need to understand Islam is just not a religion. It's a political and is a government system. It's an economic system. So we're not talking about just a religious like a Christianity.
Separation of church and state doesn't exist. Many people try to do that. Even Iran back 1960, Dr. Mudarris and Ayatollah Kashani tried to fight over this one, but Mudarris overcome that one. He said, there is no separation with the religion and state. And that's true. And that's the foundation in Islam. So when we saying I live in Islamic country is not just a religion, is everything. Concept in school, concept of out there relationship with other, and obligated to go to the mosque. If you're not going to the mosque, you will be questioned by the neighbors. They will pinpoint you if you are not involved with some of like Ramadan, if you're not fasting, if you're not doing a lot of rituals. So they're impacting your life. So answering to your question, living under that environment, it was so much pressure. That wasn't you. You will be dictated to do this one and say this one, act like this one, because everybody was watching you basically. And even as a student, you couldn't talk or have a conversation outside of the Islamic conversation. You would be asked, you would go to the office, and you would be basically questioned why you have even this conversation. So everything was monitored basically. Everything was under the rule of the governing Islamic system. So it's just not a religion. So, Islam basically as a term means submission, right?
Correct.
And so the relationship to God is a God who's very, very sovereign in the way you think about him. And of course there's one prophet, Muhammad. They talk about Jesus Christ, but they don't talk about Jesus Christ in nearly the same terms that Christians do. Very, very different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I take it that this there's the prayer. Is it 5 times a day?
5 times a day. 3 times a day. 3 times morning, noon, and afternoon. And total 17. So 3 times they're praying, morning and afternoon and afternoon. Yeah. Then they have 1 month of prayer and 1 month of fasting in
That's
the month of Ramadan. And they have Shia holding the Muharram, month of Muharram, Tasu and Ashura, the remembering of the sons of Ali, Hussein, which been martyred or been killed in Karbala fighting against the Muawiyahs. That's around the month of the morning, which is in Iran, Shia country, in Lebanon, in Iraq. Is a big month for them. Okay. So everybody wearing black.
And let's talk a little bit about the difference between Shia and Shiite. Okay. These are the two. They're the same?
Same thing, yeah.
Okay. But isn't there more than one subgroup in Islam?
They have. In fact, it's interesting. When I'm, as I said, I'm not a scholar, but I mean, I live among them. I study some stuff. So interesting. Muslim accusing Christian. You guys have so many denominations.
Right.
They have 100 denominations in Islam. You have Shia and Sunni, and under Shia you have Ahmadiyya, you have Safaviyas, you have 4 prophets, you have 5. I mean, they have all kinds of.
So the difference between Shia and Sunni, that's, I think, what I wanted to ask originally. What's the difference? It has to do with which line of succession from Muhammad you follow.
Correct. Well, if you know the history of Islam, when Muhammad suddenly dead, it caused a big disturbance of who is going to take next of the leadership of the Ummah of Islam. And Ali, of course, was nephews, and he had already Muhammad's daughter. Then we have Abu Bakr, Umar, and Usman. They were elderly. They were earlier than Ali came to believe Muhammad as a prophet. So then Abu Bakr already gave his daughter to Muhammad, is Aisha, she was 9 years old.
Because it's not monogamous. Islam is not monogamous.
It's not.
Yes.
So the different with differentiating Shia and Sunni as the line, as you said, line of this person who will carry out the calling of the prophecy of Muhammad as a Ummah Islamic.
So there are 2 slightly different traditions, basically, religious traditions. Would that be the way to think about it?
Well, not really, because the Quran is common to both sides.
Okay.
Book of Hadith is common to both sides. I mean, they have so much source are same, function differently. I mean, Shia believe. Shia accusing the Sunnis, they don't have a real Quran. The Sunni claim we have a real Quran because Umar, one of the Khalifats, when they found out Quran been written manuscripts by many people, and everybody says, I have the Quran original text.
Right.
So he decided to collect all of the Quran and start burning all of them. So he kept the original one in his own hand, and he said, this is the original Quran. Shia believe that's not the original Quran what they have. So they're confused about who has the original Quran. Shia believes we have it, and we have the Hadith, and Sunni says, no, we have it. So both of this side accusing each other, not that what you're saying is in the original Quran.
Right.
The Shia accusing Sunni, and the reverse, and the same
So
thing.
there's slight differences between the Qurans that they read?
Of course. So Shia says, according to Quran, which is original one, it comes to Ali as the next person who lead the Ummah or Islam. And then Sunni says, no, that's not the Quran. What we have, the Quran says what we have in our hands. So
okay, so there's a difference in the holy book that is being pursued.
Yeah, this is, similarity between 2 sects is, that's what just you said, is the power. I mean, the both believe the Islam and the church and basically mosque and state and power, political power is inseparable. They both believe this one, and they both apply that.
And there's a responsibility to submit to this power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so what you're saying is that it's not only a religion, there's also nationalism is probably not the right term, but there is an identity that is social, political, ideological,
Absolutely.
as well as religious.
It's been a very day one.
Yeah.
It was, it's been, I'm saying it's from day one. When you go back and check the history of Islam, in the very beginning, you see the conflict. And I sometimes I'm joking around with some of my Muslims friends. They're saying, well, you guys caused the conflict in Middle East. You guys, Western caused. I said, in 700, Islam is 700 AD. The fight and battle between Shia and Sunnis, Muawiyats, and all of these Khalifats. Back then, it wasn't British or wasn't UK. It wasn't US back then.
That's right.
The conflict between yourself because of power. Is a system of the way the governing the system. It was the very beginning and is a common to both sides. And I said it in past, and I'm saying again. The Islam rule not only is not just a religious system, is a religious politics system, an economy. They have all 3 of them in their system, in the proposal.
Now let's step back a little bit, and then eventually we'll pick up your story. One of the things that we've seen in almost all the religions that we have looked at, I'm talking about Buddhism and Hinduism, etc., is that there is a spectrum of approaches to the religion. So, and we've already pointed this out in the difference between Shias and Sunnis. But there, so I take it that there are people who represent a huge spectrum of approach to Islam, in at least Western Turkey, which is a region of the world I'm familiar with. There are people who are Muslim, but they aren't, if I can use a description, strict Muslims, if I can say it that way. So when we're thinking about this spectrum of Muslims, and the reason I'm asking this question is, when you meet someone and they say, I'm a Muslim, there's actually quite an array of possibilities as to how they hold their religious belief. Is that fair?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
Because I'm saying this one because I think there is a confusion to understanding. I heard this argument many times. We have radical Muslim.
Right.
We have modern Muslim.
Right.
I don't believe this one. I believe any Muslim around the world is submitted to one book, and as a Quran. Mm-hmm. That's a source of the understanding about Islam. And then also the book of Hadith. Mm-hmm. Both of this book is a fundamental to every single Muslim. Mm-hmm. I'm going back to the source of their teaching. Mm-hmm. What you getting this water from? Mm-hmm. What is the spring you water? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the source. Mm-hmm. I believe the Islam in the Middle East, the birthplace of Islam, and then in a recent time, we heard of ISIS creating a new Caliphate system, going back to original Islamic teaching, Islamic fundamental teaching. I think that's the true Islam. Maybe offends so many people when they're hearing this conversation. What I'm saying is, but Islam in the Western side is not Islam in the Eastern side.
Okay.
I mean, we need to think about Islam in the birthplace. Islam has a ground of the ruling the government system. That's the Islam is. What I'm trying to say is they're all within every single Muslim. There is capability of this Muslim person will not have any relationship with a Christian, will not give his daughter to you, he's not give his son to you, he's not going to have a relationship with you. He's not going to have every single Muslim all around the world, even modern one. If you go to his house, I'm not offending anybody, I'm telling the truth, I'm telling the real life. People don't may believe it or they think it's very offensive, but that fact is this. The Islam knows you are not a Muslim. Islam knows also, a Muslim knows Muhammad is the last prophet. A Muslim knows you by title, because you're not submitted to Muhammad, you are not part of that hair of the Muhammad promise. Therefore, you're infidel. Therefore, if you come to my house and drink this cup of water from my house, I'll bring you water, and you are not Muslim, I'm a devoted Muslim, I'm not going to say anything. But as soon as you leave, I'm going to wash that cup. Because that cup needs to get washed because you're not Muslim. This is enrooted in a Muslim, every single Muslim around the world.
So it's say it this way, it's a radically separatistic way to look at the world.
It is. I mean, it is Muslim believe their final religion. I mean, if we're talking about a religion, believe Muhammad is the last prophet, Quran is the final book. They don't believe your Bible. They believe they're corrupted. They believe this is the last religion. They have the truth. So from here, all of our understanding is this. Now, a Muslim over here believe, no, we love all the people, all the religion. Well, I believe there are two different voices here and the Middle East.
Okay, now that actually is part of why I'm raising this, is because there may be what the historic connection is to Islam on the one hand, but then there are the way in which people have chosen to live out their Islamic faith. And that's not all the same. I'll tell you why I'm saying this to you. We once had a group meet here that the State Department, our State Department, had arranged. We were the hosts. And it was actually, to show you how interesting this was, at this meeting, there were like 7 or 8 people from, these were Iraqis. They were from Iraq, and they were here to learn about religious pluralism. And the person that I was paired with on the American side by the State Department taught Islam at SMU. Okay, so that already is communicating to you. And so we had this very mixed group in, and when we came to discuss ISIS, this huge emotional reaction came from all the Iraqis present, and they wanted to communicate one thing. They are not Muslims as far as we are concerned. They couldn't have been more emphatic. And they wanted to make a distinction between whatever Islam they represented and what ISIS was. And so the signal that sent to me was, when I find out that someone is a Muslim, I still need to ask and become aware of how do they view their Islamic commitment. You know, granted, they're not Christians and they believe that Muhammad is one prophet and the Quran is their book. But how engaged are they really with the Quran? You already said your mother prayed with things she didn't even understand. And what does it mean to see this difference here? I mean, not everyone who is Muslim is as radical in their approach to violence as ISIS is.
Well, Dr. Bock, I mean, my heart, you know, my heart as a former Muslim, and live in an Islamic society, Islamic government system, my heart is for Muslim. I love Muslim people. And I'm on the, I mean, my passion is they understand my view is.
Right.
The fact is, when they saying ISIS is not true Muslim, I'm saying, have you ever read your Quran? Have you ever go back read the history? 1979, Dr. Bock, when the Islamic regime took over in Iran, we're talking about 20th century, okay? When they took over in Iran, they did exactly the same thing that ISIS did in Syria and Iraq. What does that mean? They destroy all the history of the kingdom of the Pahlavi in Iran. They try to influence everything to say they were Taghut, I mean demonic kingdom, and we are Islamic true voice of the civilization.
So the point that you're making here goes back to the point you were making earlier, which is that from an ideological and social and political point of view, Islam, no matter what form it takes, is totalitarian in the way in which it structures the society.
It is proven itself, is a fact. I mean, it's a historical fact.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
The unity in Islam on the one hand, and yet the diversity within Islam on the other, and they both coexist. There is a worldview that is shaping, that is similar, and that has roots, and that is that touches every area of life. It's totalitarian in that sense. It's not just a religion, it's an ideology, it's an orientation, and it distinguishes very strongly between those who are Muslim and everybody else.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then on the other hand, there is the reality that the individual Muslim who participates in popular religion may or may not appreciate everything about the official Islamic faith, if I can say it that way. Your mother was praying prayers she didn't understand.
Yes.
She and people apply their faith in a variety of ways, which means that when we engage at an individual level with someone coming out of a Muslim background, it's important not to have kind of just one portrait of a Muslim in mind.
You know, going back to, I mean, we at the bottom of our conversation, we're going to end up with how we can share gospel.
Exactly.
I mean, eventually, that would be our.
That's right.
That would be ultimate goal we have, and I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you in a sense of we need to understand this person, how his understanding or her understanding about the Islam.
Right.
And there is so much common ground between us to share the gospel with the Muslim. They believe in God. They believe that God exists. They believe God created everything in the universe.
Believe in a sovereign God.
They believe that one. They believe the mercy of God. They believe the justice of God. They have so much common ground. But the thing is, make us as a Christian to work through that one, to understand the worldview of Islam. That's a very important part, Dr. Bock. That's sometimes we get confused of this part because I believe as I said, I believe Muslims as a general, their mind, their worldview being shaped by tradition, by Islamic teaching, by Quran from the fathers, So what I'm saying is the worldview of this Muslim is this is a worldview. this is a final religion of the world.
Right.
And Islam is a final religion.
Mm-hmm.
We have a final voice.
Mm-hmm.
And Islam is this only true religion, and Muhammad is the only true prophet. Now, if you today talk to a Muslim here in studying in UTD or any other places, they may say, no, we believe other religion.
Mm-hmm.
But in a practical way, I mean, if our goal and our passion is share the gospel,
Mm-hmm.
and bring that person to a storyline of the Bible, which is salvation, and put them on that process, which is say, God promised to Abraham, which is through you, I will bless the entire nation. And then that promise been fulfilled in Christ, in the cross of Calvary, when God fulfilled this promise. And we have in the book of Revelation chapter 7, when every nation from every tribe come together. I think we need to put the Muslim mind of the storyline of the Bible, because they do not have the storyline of the Bible.
Right.
Quran has a different storyline. Then that would impact the worldview. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, the Muslim have a different perspective. They may be not having the mind like the radical Muslim have, but the worldview need to be shaped through the biblical truth,
right?
Biblical storyline.
And it's a very different worldview than the Bible, and it's a worldview that, even though there are differences among Muslims, that core worldview is so different than the Bible. There's work to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This, our ultimate passion as a Christian is this: the God promise to restore what is lost in after sin.
That's right.
The God promised this one. There would be a shalom again, once again. And we need to work through the shalom. As a Christian, we need to bring every tribe, every language, every religion to this submission through the grace and through, I would say, if you're reaching the Muslim, can I say this one? Through the persecution and suffering. And which is missing the big time in our evangelism. Our church is not so preaching this one, the cost of the gospel for preaching the gospel to the Muslim. So therefore, our goal or ultimate goal should be this: I need to bring that Muslim to realize, tell him or tell her, God loved him so much that Jesus died for his sin.
Okay, you're getting ahead of us now, so that's okay. That's okay. That's a good preview.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's close one loop, and then we can begin to transition real quickly. You came to the United States in the 1990s. Okay, I'm going to try and save time. 1998.
Yes.
And you came to the Lord after you got here.
I came, is short. I mean, my story. I wrote my book from the Semnon to the Jerusalem.
Okay.
That book being published is out there. That's my testimony. God is amazing. That's God was so beautiful. I mean, He's a sovereign God. He's so gracious God. So God brought me to His truths out of a book from Nikos Kazantzakis. The person who doesn't believe God is a Greek writer, and I pick up some footnotes from the scripture, and I meditate on the Word of God. From Langston Hughes, a African-American poet, the poem like Jesus Christ, reading that one and captivated my soul. I said, who is this Jesus? So God done a miracle things to my life to bring me to His truth through a non-believing God literatures. And when I read the Bible for first time in Farsi, in my language, I said, this is precious. This is so
someone
beautiful.
Gave you a Bible in Farsi
here.
After you got here.
Yes. For first time I read the Bible in Farsi. I was seeking get the Bible in Iran, but Bible is illegal.
Yeah.
You can't get the Bible in bookstore. So here, for first time, I received the Bible in Farsi. I read it, and it didn't took too long. It was a beautiful things.
Okay.
To hear this.
So we've come to the point. Let's begin to transition now. Obviously, then I would say, I'll do it this way. The attraction of Islam to someone who comes out of an Islamic background would be the element of orderliness that it gives to life, the respect for God that it shows, and and there is, I think, probably, for lack of a better description, a kind of ethnic element to it as well. That allows one to identify in terms of their own personal background. that
Yes.
those would be the points of attraction that would cause someone to adhere to Islam. Is there anything missing?
I think one of the things in this, then I'm going back to this one because I believe, based on history called facts, the piety in Islam, the way they worship, dedicate themselves to God, this is all belong, Doctor, you know it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a scholar.
Right.
This is all belong to Christianity.
Right.
This is all belong to Judeo-Christian worship in the early time.
Right,
we lost it. So if someone looking for beauty in Islam, they lost the beauty in Christianity. They're missing to recognize how beautiful Jesus is, how beautiful his gospel is. Of course, there is Islam in the piety of the worship, unity all together, sitting in a ground to worship God and dedicate 1 month to not eating. They all belong to us. We missed this one. We lost it throughout the transition of the power and all of this.
Okay, let's develop that a second, because when I look now, I'm looking at outside as a Christian, and I look at Islam and I see it described and I see it laid out and I see the emphases that I see in the Quran. And the one thing that jumps out at me is that whereas the sovereignty of God is highlighted in Islam, even in an emphatic kind of way, the idea of a relationship with a covenant-keeping God
is not there.
Is not there.
Is not there.
And so this whole relational development, I mean, if you walk up to a Muslim and say, you need to have a relationship with God, you're done. Right?
You just wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's why the word love is not exist in Quran.
Yeah.
You're not relating love to God.
Yeah.
You're just making so feminine.
Yeah.
That God is so powerful. So that's the misconception of understanding what kind of love we're talking about.
Yeah.
What kind of mercy we're talking about. In the first word of Islam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, of merciful God. So how do you apply this mercy? How do you understand this mercy? How do you we apply that mercy and justice and the love of God because we received it, we apply it.
Right.
There is no receiving and applying because there is no relationship, unfortunately.
Yeah. And to me, that is the biggest difference at besides the Trinity, which is not minor. But in terms of the doctrine of God and the way he relates to his creation, that is the biggest difference between Islam and Christianity.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the question becomes this. And I'm going to try and pull this together because we've been kind of roaming all over the place in dealing with this.
20 minutes,
which is
we
good.
I know. In 20
it's
minutes.
hard. Exactly right.
This is a deep conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Thousands of years to develop and 20 minminutes to solve, not happening.
May God have mercy on us.
But here's I think what we're trying to articulate, and that is that when you first encounter someone who's Muslim, probably the first and best thing to do is to make the effort to get to know them as a person, because the relational development of the culture is very, very important.
Absolutely.
And you just want, if they will share it with you, you want to hear the nature of their spiritual experience and their spiritual beliefs.
Yeah, Dr. Bock, they were speaking to you.
Yes.
You just need to be a good listener.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is we are human.
Yes.
We have a flesh.
Right.
We all struggles.
Right.
Muslim struggles, Christian struggles.
Right.
They don't have an answer.
Yeah.
They're confused. That's my destiny.
Yeah.
You don't have an answer. You know the reason for it.
Right.
There is no concept of sin. Therefore, there is no logical understanding. That's a cause from the sin, the disruption of the shalom. So what I'm saying is, if you are have a compassion about the lost,
right?
If you have a heart to bring everyone to the beauty of the gospel, beauty of the cross, then you will a good listener. Then you listen to that person, and sooner or later you will hear the struggle.
Yes.
You will hear the daily basis problems.
Right.
Then this is you, because you love that person, you connecting.
Right.
That wasn't in God's plan.
Right.
The God plan wasn't this.
Yeah.
God wasn't this plan. This is happened something in Genesis chapter 3. And guess what, my friend, my brother, Muhammad Ali, whatever the name is, you don't have this in Quran. Because there is no original sin in Quran.
Yes.
There is no chapter 3 in Quran of the Genesis we have. They don't have that one.
Right.
So therefore they can relate it, all of the struggles.
Okay.
to the source of all the
this
problems.
is the challenge of doing this kind of evangelism. So the first step that you call listening, I've made fancy in our digital age. I call it getting a spiritual GPS on the person. Okay.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're trying to get a reading of what
Absolutely.
drives them in life.
Yes.
And
of course.
then having done that, you're looking for those places where the opportunity to speak the gospel into that
Amen.
space exists.
Amen. You know, when you speaking through the Spirit, when your goal is give glorify to Christ, not to your denomination,
Right.
what the Spirit will tell you where is the moment to glorify Him. That's the problem we have with confusing yourself. You know, when you have the passion, I believe the Spirit will guide you the right place, right moment to say, click that person. This is what is happening to you. And who doesn't like to pray with that person? Let me pray. Let's pray together. You know, I think that's the things we need to work on that one as far as our mind to how we can approach Muslim background.
So we've already begun to suggest kind of where the hurdles are, the things that don't exist in Islam, that do exist in Christianity, that a person has to kind of work their way towards. I mean, so obviously we've got a relational God who keeps covenant. Okay, you've talked about the fact that there is no concept of original sin, so there's no idea of a separation from God. Okay, which is a challenge for the relationship to the gospel. It's a real challenge.
It is.
And then add on top of that who the Christian believes Jesus Christ to be, Son of God, all right, which is an offense to most Muslims, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
so that's a hill to climb.
It is.
Yeah.
But guess what? You know, I believe every single Muslim, the asking the question. I mean, we have that challenging question every single human has, no matter who you are, from what nation you are. You're seeking for truth, for the reason you will be. What is my destiny?
Why am I here?
Why I'm here?
Yeah.
Who doesn't ask that question? I asked that question when I was 13 years old. That's God who put this within our soul.
Right.
We're longing to go back to our Creator. I think that's the area we need to connect this person to a storyline of the Bible. A storyline of the Bible, there is a creation, there is a fall, there is a redemption, there is a restoration. We need to align the Muslim friends to this storyline of the Bible. And we are missing sometimes, Dr. Bock, we are missing to share the entire story of the Bible to our Muslim friends.
Okay, now let's go at this because this is important. And it seems to me that one of the points of contact is to say to the person, and I actually don't know the answer to this question, which is why I'm asking it. Obviously in Genesis, the human being is seen as being made in the image of God.
We don't have that one in Quran.
So the relational element
is at the very beginning.
It's at the very beginning, and it's missing in Islam.
Yes.
So you have to introduce the possibility of thinking about God differently.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, and not only through, you know, it starts from you as a Christian. You know, we're just not going to put this information in the mind of that person.
Right. It's how I'm relating to them as a person that's very important.
You know, how you want to relate the story of the Bible to that person.
Right.
You know, what is the ultimate goal of this conversation?
Right.
And then I as a Christian, need to live according to what I'm saying.
Right.
You know, it all comes in harmony.
Right.
All should work together hand to hand.
Right.
To bring that person to the promise of God to Abraham, Genesis 12 and 1 and 2. This is not just one piece.
Right.
Everything needs to fit together.
And the reason it has to, if I can say it this way, one of the reasons it has to be holistic, it has to cover all these bases, is because in the worldview of Islam, religion covers all of life.
Yes.
And so from that sense, it's coherent for a Muslim to see a coherent life.
Yes. They're seeking for it.
That's right.
They are longing for, they are human. The God put in their soul. I mean, they are looking for a good relationship, a prosperous life, a peaceful land, a good government, and they all seeking for something as you and I were looking for, and they don't have that one. They're a struggle with this one. A Muslim persecute a Muslim. The ISIS, when entered to the Syria and Aleppo, they persecuted Christian and Muslim all together. The refugees not just were the Muslim, not Christian, only Muslim too.
Sure.
So Muslims were confused. This is a moment. See, the place
that wasn't supposed to happen, right?
No. So it's a beauty is this one.
Yeah.
The mystery, Dr. Bock. I call it mystery. When we are not working, God is working. When we are desperate to find a solution to reach out to the Muslim, God bring a cause because of the event, create the ISIS. God let this group become existent. Everything has happened because of His will. I believe that the opportunity came. God gave us this opportunity to share the gospel with a Muslim refugee, just like a person called Muhammad. When I met him as a refugee camp, he said, if this is the God of my father, I'm not going to follow.
I don't want anything to do with it.
I don't want to do anything with
it. I'm very familiar with that. I was in Germany a little over a year ago in Cologne. Cologne in Germany. It's Cologne in English. I'm preaching at a Presbyterian church, but they had me come to a special service. I'm being translated into Farsi. It's 300 refugees. They are led by a pastor who formerly was a goalie on the Iran national soccer team, who left Iran and has become a Christian and become a pastor of this group, and their disaffection with Islam as they had experienced it has left them completely open to the gospel, and they are coming to faith literally every week because of what they have left behind.
Amen.
And so I look at that and I go, that's interesting. You may meet Muslims who actually are searching. They're confused.
So what new uprising in Iran just happened a couple of months ago. So if you are observing well what's happening on that chaos, who are in the street, you see a conflict between fathers and the children. These are conflict between two generations. The children says to the fathers, wrong choice. We're not going to follow what you did because what we're going throughout these years of the ruling over the supremacy of Islam and ruling over us, taking us the freedom and everything from us, we don't want to follow your God, which you worshipped, which you confused, which you don't know. I think that's the conflict in one point. I mean, we are, Dr. Bock, we are obligated to the gospel because if we're sitting over here, the God will find a way, purpose, to reach out to the lost. We need to be pioneer. We need to be listening to the voices, listening to event God causes around the world, in the Middle East, here, all around the world, and let God move us in the front. He is leading us to bring this confused nation, confused generation to the truth of the gospel.
Okay, now that we've solved all this, let me go with
what we didn't solve anything. We were just talking about it.
Let me ask you one more question. I think it's the last question we have time for.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've suggested that Jesus Christ and the person of Jesus Christ, the idea that he's the Son of God, is very difficult for a Muslim. What suggestions do you have for us about how to talk about him?
Is Jesus who... in the Quran, they believe Jesus as you're not Muslim if you don't believe Jesus, basically.
Right.
The Jesus who is supreme in his power, who bring the relationship of the lost person who is in a dark world and confused. We need to introduce this Jesus again, I'm going back again because it's very important.
Right.
Because I cannot reach the Muslim, I cannot share the gospel with Muslim and do not preach and teach the persecution because of the sake of the gospel. That's not the gospel and that's not the Jesus we're supposed to say. Well, how we can preach the Jesus, how we can introduce the Jesus to the Muslim? About the love and grace of God and let this person know what the costly is to follow this Jesus. Because we believe with this the mistake we're doing is today, Dr. Bock, in the Middle East area, we preaching the gospel without a price a Muslim converted from Islam need to pay for the gospel. I think when we understand this one, because the beauty of the Jesus, beauty of the gospel, how priceless is, a Muslim, you don't have to tell that person go die for Jesus.
Yeah.
He will do it, or she will do it, because of when he or she sees a relationship with Christ, know the God who created him, what the God has planned for him in eternity, and he will give everything for this gospel and for this Lord.
So, and so what you're saying is that if you understand what it is what the story of the Bible is in terms of what it cost Jesus to bring us to himself, we need to be prepared to walk the same path.
Amen.
Okay.
If we preach this one and teach this one, you will captivate the heart and mind of the Muslim. We're not injecting,
because they understand suffering.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're not injecting the Bible. We're just talking about their heart and their soul, because they're lost, they're confused, they're looking for the answer. And what answer we're given to them? This is a very important mission we have.
Okay. Well, Paul, Hussein, it has been a real pleasure.
I've been blessed by sitting with you.
Yeah,
it's a great blessing.
I think you've really given us insight, not just into Islam, but how to think about sharing with Muslims, and that's exactly what we were hoping to do. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you being a part of the table, and we hope you found this not just fascinating, but instructive, and we hope you'll be join us again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Table Podcast. For more podcasts like this one, visit dts.edu/the table. Dallas Theological Seminary. Teach truth, love well.